Thanks, Yvonne. Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming along today, and also for the speakers who've already been on. As Yvonne's mentioned, I'm going to be talking about some positive experiences from our community development side. So just to start off, I'll probably tell you a little bit about who we are, because I'm sure that not many people have probably heard of sporting communities. So as Yvonne's mentioned, we're a not-for-profit, but we're an ethical organisation. And we set up because our ethics, values, philosophy are core to what we do, and they're threaded throughout the organisation as well. And that's like our strongest push when we talk about who we are and what we believe in. One of the ways that we approach our community development and sport through community development is we work with communities to learn how to serve them best. And I think that's key in 2 points. One is that we need to understand the people that we're working with and providing services to, but also that we're here for their benefit. And ultimately, within the third sector, our goal is to make ourselves redundant, so that we aren't needed. We're there to serve the purpose of the community to a point where they're resilient and capable enough to take on the responsibility for themselves and just be guided or supported from afar. We have 4 strands within our organisation. So sporting communities is the core part of it, which is using sport as a tool. We have creative communities because not everyone likes sport. And so that engages people through play and the arts. And we have an events team. We also have sustaining communities, which is a training academy for volunteer and professional development. And we also support smaller VCSE groups to develop through things like aiding them with grant writing and getting those fundamental policies and procedures in place. And then we have supporting communities, which is our family support, counselling, and community mediation approach as well. And the reason that we developed it like this was because, as I'm sure that many of you will be aware, that when we're working with the most vulnerable or marginalised people, there's often quite a lot of trust issues in relation to being signposted. So this allows us to do an internal transfer of those people to the support that they need, and then if they need further support from elsewhere, then they get handheld into that. So this is something for later, really. There's lots of different types of forms of motivation, but I've very simplistically put it down into what I believe are like the 2 key things. So this is personal. Before I get jumped on too much, there's fear and all the negative motivations, and then there's gain. So we know that there's intrinsic and extrinsic and the rest. But for me, ultimately, it comes down to, are those motivators positive, or are they based around those negative and fears? So I just want you to bear that in mind for later on. And I think in the poll, I put about what motivates you. So if you get a chance to fill that out, that'd be great. Well, I'm also going to be touching on the chat later. So if you can access the chat and fill in on that, that'd be great as we go along. So everyone here, I assume, will know about the benefits of health and why health and activity are important. Just getting back to those motivators, though, what I would really encourage you to do is delve a little bit deeper into the reasons that people give for wanting to do an activity or wanting to get involved in stuff. So, for example, if it was someone going and doing workouts at the gym, then it might be that on that positive side, they might be wanting to get involved in the gym and get bigger because they want to feel more confident about how the way they look. It might be that they want to take up a career in bodybuilding or modeling. Or on the other side, it might be that person who's given the same motivator of wanting to get bigger might be a victim of abuse instead. So when you are talking with people about why it is that they're getting involved in sport, physical activity, health improvements, try and really have that deeper conversation about what it is that's actually the fundamental anchor of that motivation, because that'll help you as a deliverer to understand what services and what support you can put in place to really make a difference to them on a long-term and sustainable means. So just in terms of activity and obesity, when we talk about activity and understanding the makeup of activity, one thing for me is that I don't actually think we know as a nation where we're at in this, and I think without being able to understand where we're at in terms of our activity within communities and how active, how healthy people are, it's hard to then put measures in place to be able to address where issues are. And so this is a table where the actual table itself is about obesity and overweightness, but and that shows the increase over time of the nation's overweight and obesity status in the UK. The green line is how active we are as a nation. And you'll notice that there's quite a steep jump around 2008, and that was when the Active Lives survey changed to suggest that, so it included things like walking, and it reduced the number of activity length. So it was, rather than it being 1 times 30 minutes was classed as one session of activity, to blocks of 10 minutes. So I think that if we could delve a little bit deeper into what people class as activity and understand where we're at on a deeper level, then I think that would help us to put things in place later on. But one of the things in terms of understanding how we can encourage more people to get involved in physical activity, I think comes down to shifting the culture of those motivators towards those gain side, towards the positive experiences. So my question for you on the chat is around your experiences in sports. We're going to look at or sports and physical activity. We're going to look at why is it that you take part in sports and physical activity. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a minute to write on the chat what reasons it is that you take part, why is it that you get involved in sports and physical activity, then that would be great. I'll just give a minute for that, and hopefully everyone's chat is working and I'm going to have a few response. All right, brilliant. Thank you, Yvonne. Fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, so great. So we've got, it's fun, it makes you feel better, maintain physical and mental health, social reasons, fitness, connecting with nature, great, de-stress, beats work. So, all right, brilliant. Thank you everyone for sharing those reasons. And I can see a few of them are around social reasons. And again, in those social reasons, I expect that a lot of those are about the positive outcomes that you have associated with those. So being able to feel good about meeting with friends and the good things that come with that. So I'm just going to bring you down some research and see how that ties in. So why children take part in sport. So these are the 5 primary reasons that children take part in sport. And the one that stood out to me the most, having a play background, is about fun and enjoyment. And this is something that we try and promote through all of our work. And we think it's fundamental to encouraging people to stay active and get active in communities. Because if we don't have that, if people don't enjoy it, then they won't want to continue doing it. So whether those motivators that you have are positive or negative, if they're negative, if that negative barrier is removed, then that doesn't mean that you're going to feel motivated to keep doing it again. Whereas if it's a positive thing and it's something that you want to do, then that's what's going to keep you going. And it really surprised me to then find out that when it comes to adults, there's less than a third of people that do it for fun, which I think is a real shame, actually, because I think that we need to maintain that element of fun in sports. And if any of you are out there are providers, then I'd really encourage you to look at the activities that you're doing, and are they helping to provide social activities that are fun? Are they helping you to have competitive things which are fun? And Vicky has just mentioned about PE at school being awful, and I'm sure that all of you can think of a negative experience that you've had in sport and physical activity, regardless of the situation where it is. And actually, researchers, these are different barriers to sport and physical activity. Some of these are, obviously somebody mentioned about time being, as in finding time for things, and that's those three on the left are the core reasons that always come up in surveys and research. But in research, most ones into motivators for physical activity show that it's a lot easier to cite barriers rather than the benefits of activity. So again, when it comes around to wanting to retain people in sport and physical activity, not having positive experiences from it that presents a real challenge in terms of keeping people in the activities. And a lot of the vulnerable communities that we work with that are quite deprived communities, where there's maybe like low education and there's financial poverty as well. Some of those experiences that they've had as a youngster, maybe not being able to access the swimming pool because of the cost, not being able to do very well on the like understanding tactics and things like that because of low ed. All those sorts of things have contributed towards those negative experiences that people have had. So it's important that we try and understand how to turn that around into a positive experience. Because wouldn't it be great if we had smiles? So that was just my slide of people enjoying sport and physical activity. So it would be great if we could have more of these faces. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what sport it is, what physical activities it is that you want to do. We just need to make sure that people are enjoying that experience and put the fun back into the fundamentals of activity. One of the reasons that I was keen to talk about the barriers and the negative motivators compared to the positives, and really understanding what the fundamental root of people's barrier to activity was, is because sometimes there can be a common ground for it. So I'm just going to give you a case study of a program that we ran in Newcastle under Lyme, which we titled "Replace Crime with Playtime." And there was a lot of young people and adults in this community where they would say that the barriers were that they just didn't enjoy sport and physical activity, they didn't want to go out, and they didn't have the time to do it, or they didn't feel like they were sporty enough. And actually, when we broke it down into understanding the core reasons as why they got to that point, it was actually because they were fearful of going out and being able to exercise and do activity in their community. So in this particular area, there was quite a high density of murders and crime. So people wouldn't go out because they didn't feel safe to do so. And especially for those with learning needs and disabilities, they would be victimized even more so because of how vulnerable they were. So what we did is we put on activities that were structured and in places where they felt most vulnerable. So they were supported to do activities in those areas. And in fact, where one of the murders had taken place during the program, we actually shifted and worked with the police to provide the activities in the space where the individual was murdered, which was all over drugs and the long-term disputes. So what it meant is that it shifted the culture within the community from being fearful of going out and creating excuses not to be involved in activity and not to go out, to actually wanting to go out and be part of something. And it unified all of those people with the different motivators to go out and take part and take control of their community in an active way. And since then, we were able to work with them on training them as leaders. We actually had some young people that took up sports like table tennis and went on to win trophies. We had a group of volunteers that became leaders, and they went on to win a Be Inspired award. But without understanding the core root of their inactivity, we would never have been able to get to the point that we were. So it's important that we connect with communities when we're going through this process. And like I say, our motto is working with communities to learn how to serve them best. And that's fundamentally important to us. We will work with communities regardless of the area that they are in, regardless of the space that they've got, and regardless of the facilities that they're able to take part in. One of the things that we do is we take out portable floodlights to be able to do activities in the dark, because in particular for young people, when they're out and they want some sort of positive engagement and they're not able to access facilities, either youth facilities or leisure facilities, then it's easy for them to get influenced by toxic choices and toxic behaviors. So we go out and we provide those activities in spaces that young people are. And that's something that's great, because we can work with them to understand how they can better utilize their spaces in a way that is safe for them to take part, but also means that they can make the best out of the area, and they start to get a respect for their community and their area. And the adult community, who would quite often see young people out at night in the dark as potentially troublesome, they see them as a positive influence in their community and recognize what the young people are trying to do and what they're trying to achieve. So we think working with those young people, or working with any residents to make better use of their own space, is important. However, if you do have the option to work with facilities, and we've been working with Reach Sports quite closely on the redevelopment of an area called Norton, which is highly deprived. It's top 10 for the IMD, and it is also highly ethnically diverse. It's 65% non-white. There's a high population of South Asians in particular in this community. So we asset transferred from the local authority a community centre, which has got a big hall in it, the concrete courts, as you can see at the top left on the slide there, and also a pavilion, which is boarded up at the minute. And what we've done is, rather than going and putting activities or making changes to those facilities for our betterment, we've co-designed the activity, the facilities with the community. So we've really got them embedded into what it is that they would like to see from this space, because they're the ones that are going to be using it, how they would like to see the spaces constructed, what sort of activities, what sort of turf they'd like, what sort of paint colours they'd like, all that sort of stuff. And they've worked with us really well on being able to create these spaces and really gain ownership of them. And that hasn't just been about working with a small select group of people within that community. It's been about really getting a cross-section of the community to get involved in this, because it's not just an adult population or a small group of 10 young people that we want to help consult with this. We want these facilities to be for everyone, because that's the only way that we're going to make the whole community active. And so we've come up with solutions that have met the needs of everyone, and then communicated that with the different groups, so that they understand and empathize with each other as well. And then it becomes a multi-use space, but it becomes for all people, and people respect the other community members using it. What that's led to is a massive cross-section of the community coming out and doing it. So we've got obviously some young people that we worked with on the holiday activity programs, quite diverse communities. We've got some female-only sessions, and again, working with those people. We're working with those people to continue to co-design what goes on next and how we can continue to make the park ready for them. One of the things that we've done recently, we got some YIF funding, which was through working with the community. They wanted an IT suite because it was an area that they struggled for academic grades. So they wanted an IT suite, and they wanted a therapy center because there was a lot of mental health issues in the area. So we are redesigning a courtyard at the back of the center, which was previously being used as a skip, and we're turning that into a place where they can have those things. And those people then who are going to be accessing the physical activities and the sports activities can then go on to those other things. So we might get the next leader, we might get someone who's struggling with their mental health to go in and get support, all through that holistic service. But the co-design of it is what's core to this. One other element that we found from working with communities is about the lack of leaders within communities, and the lack of people locally to drive those things. So we ran a research project with Sport England, Loughborough, UK Coaching, Sporting Equals, which came about because the people that we're working with in communities, in particular ethnically diverse communities, were saying that they didn't have role models, they didn't have like people who looked like them in their community, and that was a barrier to activity for them. And when we asked them about why they weren't getting involved in that, or why they weren't being a coach, there wasn't really an answer for it. So what we did is we did this research project around barriers to coaching, and in particular paid coaching, because interestingly, ethnically diverse people are overrepresented in voluntary coaching, but massively underrepresented in paid coaching. So we've worked with this group. There's some research findings which I'll put on the files. And we've got a toolkit, and we've got some other bits, and a documentary that's come about from this. But what it's helped us to do is turn those individuals from identifying a problem to being part of the solution for the problem. And these individuals, and there is more, it was just the photo was taken at just after COVID. Not everyone felt comfortable going close to each other. But it's actually getting them to become resilient and create change for themselves then, so that again, we can start to step away as a community development organization and then go and work with the next community that needs it and just offer support from a distance. So these are some of the things. There is a documentary as well, 2 versions of the documentary. One is an hour and 45 minutes, but it doesn't feel like that, which gives you a really thorough, in-depth understanding of that journey. And the other one is about 15 minutes long, for those of you that have a lunch break and want to watch it. But I will share these things on the files so that anyone who wants to have access to them can do so. And just my last thing for leaving is that there's a quote which is on the left: positive thoughts generate positive feelings and attract positive life experiences. And it might be something that you've come across before. But I think that as a sector, supporting people to try and have these positive experiences, we need to invert that. We need to create positive life experiences, because that will generate positive thoughts and attract positive feelings. And those are the things that will keep people involved in sport and physical activity and lead to creating active communities. And that is me done. Thank you for listening.